And a lot of times we think that, hey, that's common sense, not to do something that's going to set somebody off. But in real life, in real human behavior, as we see every day, all day long in schools, at work, on the street, it's not so common when we're dealing with human thoughts, right, and actions. Builds on the strengths of participants and creates distractions to the behavior. So the intent of a safety plan is to take a look at those who are involved with the plan. What are their strengths? What authentically and organically can they do that's going to even distract the behavior, so that we can take the client and anyone else involved from harm's way, and hopefully to reduce the behavior and occurrences, and then move in the direction of the long-term goal. It may not be at the onset an absolute prevention. So what coordinators must know: the safety plan is not a one-time deal. You don't create the safety plan with the client and or family members and or staff and develop this hit of a safety plan and solve the problem. And it's the same with teaching. You know, you develop a lesson plan. It is not going to hit every student in every class in the same way. You redevelop the lesson plan, you reflect so that it is more effective as you go along. So that's what happens with safety planning. It evolves as the client evolves, okay? Plans may not eliminate the behavior, but seeks to reduce the risk. Plans may or may not involve the client, and that might be a surprise to some of us. So when we're having these conversations, we want to make sure that we take a look at the client's willingness to participate in the safety plan. So we might often, especially as we're dealing with, and I don't want to stigmatize or stereotype, but let's say we're dealing with younger people. Most often, sometimes they're not at the maturity level, some adults either, where they can manage, or even, how can I say, the metacognition around the behavior they may not be fully aware, or they may feel like, hey, a plan is stupid. What's the plan? If people just didn't, I wouldn't get mad, right? Or I wouldn't be angry, or I wouldn't do this thing. So oftentimes you might have the client not want to be a participant in the safety plan. Does that mean you cannot still develop a safety plan? No. You can very much still develop a safety plan with those who are intimately involved with the client, because again, the primary reason for a safety plan is to reduce what? That H word, harm. Thank you, it's to reduce harm and risk, right? And crisis as well. The plan can only involve willing participants. We cannot drag people to the safety plan table, because a plan has to be workable, and there has to be a belief system around the plan, which is why it's not developed by the coordinator. It is developed by those who are intimately involved. You just facilitate, like teaching, like good teaching in the 21st century. You facilitate the planning. You ask the right questions in order for those involved to kind of come up with a working plan. So it has to be developed by people who are willing. The plan must be developed by the participants and not the coordinator. And plans must meet the family's level of willingness and belief in the planning stages. So you don't want to develop this very explicit, well spelled out plan if the family is not at the place where they're ready to receive such. So depending on the family's level of planning, we'll kind of get to what that looks like, then you may want to start with a more simple or a more extravagant plan, depending on where the family is in terms of planning. Does it make sense? Mm-hmm. So this is all about the family, meeting them at their needs, okay? And by family, I mean those intimately involved with the client. So developing the plan, and I call it the interview, right? So you all have received prior. Did we give them the pre-planning forms at the package yet? So prior, you all received HOYA's. Yes. Glasses on. And I'm telling you, put your glasses on, turn the lights on, because I'm pretty strong. Use your magic powers. So you all received, in advance of today, HOYA's safety crisis prevention plan. So you've seen this before, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So we want to make sure the part of today's training is to really understand what these questions are asking, how to use this information, and what format is suggested for you to have this conversation and develop the plan. Y'all with me? Mm-hmm. Be quiet. Give me some snacks. Stop. So, developing the plan. So where to begin? Where do we begin? With advanced communication information. So what you want to do, and in front of you is where you'll start gaining information. So prior to you developing a plan, it can be the day of, it can be prior, I don't know if you guys have a preference. Your clients and the clients, I'm using the term loosely, those persons that the clients remotely trust, who are intimately involved, who are usually around when there is a behavioral issue. I'm not always going to use the term crisis because the point is to try to prevent it from getting to the level of crisis, right? Even though sometimes that's not preventable. So prior to developing a plan, you want to do this questionnaire with your client. So this first sheet, the first sheet and the second sheet, the top of the second sheet is the client's information that they are sharing with you, as much as they are conscious of, that they can relate to you. So this is your consideration of where they are in terms of what their behaviors are, what their triggers are, what their needs are for those people who support them. Does that make sense? So if we read through the questions, can I get somebody to read for me, please? Starting with problem behaviors.
Problem behaviors. These are behaviors that sometimes show, especially when I'm stressed.
So you'll see a list of the problematic behaviors. So the client, it's pretty simple. The client gets to check off, and depending on the needs of the clients, you have some special needs clients that might need for you to read for them. You have clients that might need for you to scribe for them. But you want them to answer. So you want to ask the question, not leading, and allow them to answer the best they can, right? Next one. Would you continue from?
Triggers. When these things happen, I am more likely to feel unsafe and upset. Warning signs. These are things other people may notice me doing if I begin to lose control. Interventions. These are things that might help me calm down and keep myself safe and others when I'm feeling upset. Things that make it worse. These are things that do not help me calm down or stay safe.
Okay. So just take, if you will, just take about 2 minutes and go through and read, because it might have been a minute since you had. Go through and read some of the options on each. And I think even if you consider yourself, you'll have some aha moments. Like, wait a minute, this is actually a trigger. Any reactions?
I saw some things that pointed to me, especially the first one. Behaviors I sometimes show, especially when I'm stressed. I seen like 3 or 4 things in there that
So very much human, right? Very much human, very much relatable.
Very much so.
Right, but in the conversation and the consideration and even reflection of for a client, it's like, wow. And sometimes now of course they get this in therapy. But sometimes having the conversation in a different context is still an aha moment for a client, and definitely an aha moment for a family member. Like, I didn't know. Sometimes because I'm mom, I want to be able to de-escalate you. But just my physical presence, sometimes even just the tone of my voice might be that trigger for you, and I need to know that. But sometimes the power struggle and the pride and the supposed beingness, I am supposed to be able to do this for you in the way that it was done for me and that was effective for me, is kind of what we continue, and that's the cycle that we're working to break as we have all parties involved consider their involvement in an impending crisis. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So, before you go, on the second page, you see where it says clients crisis plan? That's the actual plan. Yes, sir.
Just really quick for on the first page.
Yes.
So as a coordinator, when did we implement the crisis prevention plan? In other words, at what level of comfort through our relationship should I ask that person, have they ever attempted suicide or thought about it?
What, have they ever?
I mean, you said check off the blocks on the problem behaviors. We would get that information from the client.
Yeah, absolutely.
At what point should we do this?
We
Say it again.
Go ahead, what you say?
Sorry.
Go ahead, what you say?
In the beginning.
In the beginning.
So I
And
just,
you'll know.
when you say beginning, you got two beginnings. The first time I met you, and this is the second time I met you, but it's still the beginning.
Well, the first time, so say for instance, when you get to start your PRP services with the client, the
Yes.
assessment will be done. Well, the first time I meet the client, I ask, have you ever committed suicide? That's my first encounter with you, and that's a very important thing that I need to know. Have you ever thought about it, seriously thought about it, or attempted? Are you currently thinking about it, or ever had a plan? Those are conversations that you have during the assessment,
Gotcha.
and that will be on the assessment. I believe they have access to the assessment.
Yeah, well, sure.
You'll have
Right.
access to the notes that I put on that the therapist puts on the assessment. So
So
you'll have some background information, but you can then also revisit that the first time you meet them and you're conversating with them. And in the first meeting, you can tell them there are going to be some questions that I'm going to ask you in the beginning just for me to get some background information, and so they'll know that there are going to be some questions that you're going to ask them. So it's not like it's uncomfortable.
And are you saying go through this whole?
Yes, you want you.
Go ahead. So, sometimes, have you, I'm just saying, even if you have it in front of you, you can have back pocket or have it in your mind and say, all right, I'm going to ask these 3 questions today. All right, I'm going to ask this question tomorrow. You're still doing the assessment.
Okay.
Sometimes it's overwhelming
Exactly.
to a client.
Right.
Right.
And to
When
me,
when you're reading from a script,
Exactly.
so just make it more comfortable. But you're just, as a conversation, but you're asking, but you really want to get through because you're getting to know that person.
gotcha.
And I think when we get over the initial angst ourselves, hey, I'm about to ask a deep question, right? And we check ourselves and get over that angst. And reduce that energy we bring into the room. Even in that opening conversation, it's like, if you've ever gone to therapy, it's almost a relief to be able to sit in front of a person and just talk about yourself without guilt. Like, I don't have to worrying about being selfish with this time,
Sure.
right? And so I think your opening is really important. It's like, hey, Paul, listen, I know that this might get a little uncomfortable because I'm gonna ask you some things that normally a stranger wouldn't ask you. But the thing between us is that we're gonna become closer than probably most of the people who you know, because my whole job at this point is to be here for you, right? So as I ask these questions, I want you to be as honest as possible, but you can also tell me none of my business right now, right? And so it is the most honest, transparent conversations you have, and I think it opens the doors at the very beginning for hey, this person isn't afraid, and this person is really interested and invested in me. And I will also open by saying, but let me tell you that if you do say that you intend to harm yourself or someone else, and you have a plan around it, I am definitely gonna pull some other people here just to make sure you're okay. Because at the end of the day, I always want to make sure that you're okay. I'm not here for mom. I'm not here for dad. I don't care if I'm a branch of teacher. No, this is about you. I am only here for you. And that is the way you open up. And I think then that will kind of get you over the gate. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Do we need to role play and practice?
No, you just did. You just hooked it up. You just worked it out.
I'm glad you said it.
Work it out.
Right.
Work it out.
Yeah. So let's skip a little bit, right? Let's go past the plan, because that insight gives us insight to what the client knows right now about themselves. What you need to back pocket is that's what they know right now about themselves. Therapy is helping them realize some things, right? Even in that communication or conversation with you, it's going to help them realize even more things. But this is what they know right now. Who else do you need to hear from to develop the safety plan? People who know them well enough. Yeah, people who know them well enough who you may want to involve in the plan. Who are some people you may want to involve in the plan?
If it's a minor, I would say teacher, because they're with them probably more than the parent.
Maybe a teacher, maybe a parent, maybe a sibling. It would depend on whatever the behavior and the crisis or harm is that you're trying to prevent in terms of who you bring into the conversation. But I also ask my client, who you trust? Who are you usually around when XYZ happens? Who do we need to bring into the conversation that you will feel good about knowing about some of this stuff that's going to help reduce some of this for you, right? So I would start with also asking the client, because it's not always mom and dad, but it definitely most certainly can be mom and dad, right? Teacher. So let's skip a bit to past the plan to the next to the last page that's titled, and I apologize for small writing, even I'm struggling, which is titled Family Crisis Plan, and that family again is used loosely. Okay, these are intimate persons close to the client. That's a good idea. So these are the questions that I would ask once I gain a better understanding in terms of who needs to be a part of this conversation. I will make an opportunity and time for us to sit together. It may or may not be with the client based on the client's comfort level. Hey, when I speak to mom, when I speak to teacher, do you want to be there? Right? Do you want me to be with them by myself? And then I will always defer to the client if the client is old enough, to make that decision for themselves. So the first question again is I'm gonna use Paul. So how Paul looks or acts when in crisis, right? So that gives you some outside information that clients may not have, right? My or our priority and concern when blank is in crisis. Okay, so what's the priority for you, for the family? There might be a sibling who gets nervous when XYZ happens, who's often around. So you want to hear from the client, from the family, what some of their priorities are. Is this somebody's phone around? Next, what is helpful to Paul during crises or support intervention? So you're eliciting some prior information so that this plan, because again, remember, the plan has to be practical to those who are implementing the plan. So it has to draw on what they already know, what they feel comfortable with. Mm-hmm. What is helpful to my family during crises or support intervention? And what treatment strategies do we prefer to have? I'm going to the next page. What treatment strategies do we prefer not to have? If we cannot be reached in a crisis, please contact, and then of course contact information. So this is the information that you would gather from the outside persons to the client. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Flashlights on your phone.
I'm trying to see. Thank you.
It came up.
See, so you have your glasses. You need the lenses. My glasses coming on Friday, my left. So thank you, y'all. Appreciate it.
No problem.
So that was the pre-planned communication. All right. So I have a little video, and I want to kind of get it started so that this can be a practical conversation in terms of, can we pass this out? How much time do I have? How much time? 10 minutes? All right. So let's get into how we develop a plan. Now, we're going to be authentic to what a plan involves. So let me skip a little bit here. If you look here at the orange, a plan for our families, I'm going to say a plan for our clients, should be practical. Okay, so I have a question mark so that as you develop the plan, you're asking yourself this question. Is the plan practical? Does the level of the plan match the readiness of the participants? Is it an authentic plan? Meaning, is it doable for them? And does it negate harm? Does it remove whatever the harm or crisis is that we're trying to negate? Yes, it's a back and forth. It's a back and forth. All right, so two-sided. Okay, so we're gonna watch a video, right? And this video is going to be a sample. Where's my text?
Right here.
Oh, this video is going to be a sample of a real teenager in, I would consider a mild crisis. In schools, you see, we see much worse. But I'm going to consider it a mild crisis, okay? And I just want you, I'm giving you this because I want you to have a realistic vantage point of what our family may deal with as we develop a plan. We're going to use a role plan and that type of thing so that you leave armed with having this conversation on how to develop a plan. Didn't she open? I thought you opened it on another video. Oh, gotcha. Oh, you got to do all that? Because I could have done without the video if we pressed the time. Hold on. Okay. While she gathers that, let me give you this. So this is a completed sample, and I'm also going to give this. What you get is a two-sheeter. You're getting a sample goal, And you're also getting a completed sample of a prior communication plan that a parent filled out. So that you can kind of see what some of your responses may look like. I just try to make things as practical as possible so that you can see the work in action. So I hope I'm not overwhelming you, but I'm giving you enough information.
You want me to push play?
It is.
Oh. Yeah, okay. Commercial? Oh, okay. You got it? Okay.
I don't have this
Is it one sheet or 2 sheets?
It's 2 sheets.
I have 1 sheet.
What you got? Let me see your hand.
360.
Thank you.
360.
Wait a minute. Here. Oh, scenario one.
You should have the 360 action strategies. Is it the same?
Yeah.
And you should have this,
Okay, so.
the focus.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
You have both of those? Yes. Okay, that's all you need.
I do not. You have focus?
Oh, yeah, I got the focus from him.
Oh, yeah.
Now, obviously, I say when they stripped her room bare and took off her door, Tiffany just went ballistics. Now, as it turned out, our cameras were actually there that day, so we were able to catch some of this just happening organically. This wasn't planned, it wasn't set up, it just happened. Take a look.
When I saw my doors moved from my room, I felt angry and really pissed off.
I said you're not getting educated. This is my house, Tiffany. Shut up. Here, stop.
This isn't that either, so he has the right to shut up. My room was filled with everything a girl can do.
You looked through it all. Is that how you serve respect?
Yeah!
What kind of respect is that?
The same respect you're giving me! I'm going like back. I don't want it out of his house. Shut up. What kind of respect is that when you know how I feel about him?
So she's your dad.
I don't give a.
Don't talk to me like that.
Well, I'm telling you, I don't give a if he's my dad.
Calm down.
No, I'm not calming down until I get back and it's out of his house.
She's yelling profanities at you and screaming at you. She does it with you. What do y'all do when that happens?
You know, it used to be when
Okay,
she
so we
would
can-
get screaming and yelling.
So what do you do when that happens? Is the conversation where you pick up, right? So to help empower those who are dealing with the real life scenarios of such behaviors. And I think for those of us who work with children outside of our own, that we see that this is very much, how can I say? I don't want to say average behavior, but I want to say it happens. So hopefully nobody in the room is very surprised of this. But as you can imagine, if you're a parent or a family member dealing with this, at what loss? Like there's such a loss that we're on Dr. Phil trying to figure out what to do. So our job is to really help that parent come up with a safety plan that is practical, that is the family, that is practical, that helps to reduce the harm in a crisis. Make sense? So let's consider our focus, which is this sheet you have here. So some things I wanted to provide for you so that you can walk away and keep with you. So our focus is, what's the goal, right? Now, what are you thinking?
From the video. You
From the video.
To not get her to curse at her parents. And to handle, when she's feeling frustrated, to handle it in a better way.
Find out what you think.
So you said figure out the trigger, find out why she's being frustrated. You're saying that she doesn't curse her parents out.
Right, what caused it? What's the root cause of her reaction?
So again, triggers, right? So what is your job as the coordinator in this conversation?
To help her de-escalate so that she doesn't harm herself from going off on her mom or whatever. Find out what causes her to want to do that so that she can work on not getting to that point where she has to curse out her mom and she can better handle herself.
So for us, go ahead. So for us, face value is we hear a scenario or we see a scenario and we say, hey, we need to learn how to de-escalate the child. We need to learn what the triggers are, right? For the family, It might be as simple as when I take the door off of your room, that you notice how she tried to grab the bag and all that. It might just be that you allow us to take the things and we negate and negotiate as to how and when you're gonna get them back. Right? The family might not mind that she cussed them out, or they mad. You understand what I'm saying? The point is that we don't come in with our own backpacked superhero ideas around what the goal should be. Our job is to facilitate the conversation. What's the goal for the family here? What is the issue here? Where is the harm here? Where's the sense of danger? That's the number one question. Where's the sense of danger and the harm here? Right? For the child, for the family, and then what's the behavioral goal? So we want to be careful not to, because I think that we learn in therapy, and I guess you started Rogerian theorists. You want to be careful not to add your own ideas and input. You want to be able to ask the right questions so that those participants are able to develop their own, so they own it. Right. So anybody who's ever led anything knows that if you tell people what to do, they're likely to not do it until they understand for themselves why it's important, why it's workable, and what it means for them. Right? So a belief system has to be there. So it's asking the right question, right? Doesn't mean that you don't already have ideas, because you're human, you can have ideas. But you got to keep them in your pocket and learn the questioning skill. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Okay. And that's the art of this, right? And that's a learned art. But we have to know that. So here are the steps. You want to define what the goal is with the family. So you want to ask the right questions. What is the harm? And you can ask it just like that. As a matter of fact, your sheet, if you go back to the plan, starts to ask those questions. What is the behavior we're working to reduce? And then what are questions we can ask to get to those strategies? So I just included that so you can start to think in that direction. Then you list strategies. So I created this web so that as you have this conversation, you ask, what is our goal here? Let's list the goal. I've given you a sample goal. You see it? Just so that you can see how a goal is worded, right? So I'll give you a sample goal there. So you want to walk and talk the family through what's your goal and what behavior are we working to impact here. Okay? And I will put that on the sheet here. And then the lines are provided on the web for you to start listing some strategies. What are some workable, doable things that you have found works for you? Parent might say, I ignore the behavior, I turn around and walk away. The parent might say, I count to 10 to make sure I don't escalate with her, right? I try not to engage. A parent might say, you know what, I let Paul come in as dad because she responds more appropriately to Paul. Or we let her go into our room and call. You ask them what already works, because sometimes they have the answer and they've experienced the answer, but they don't do it consistently enough to stop the behavior, right? So, does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So you want to kind of just keep asking, what are some of the strategies? What are some of the strategies? What are some of the strategies? And then you list them here. And then when you get to asking them and reading their pre-communication. So I noticed that in your pre-communication, you said some of your triggers are when you lose your sense of privacy. That might be her trigger, when you lose your sense of privacy. So our step 3 might be, so what are some of the, what can I do to, what happens when I notice those signs? So when I came and I saw my door off my room, and what gets me, let me backtrack. When you ask a person, even an adult, what your triggers are, sometimes they don't know it because they're not that tapped in. Like that's kind of an advanced skill to say. When I get angry, I notice that my brow sweats, my underarm starts sweat. I notice that I bounce my leg a little bit. That's an advanced self-awareness that maybe a lot of adults don't even have yet, right? Think about when your husband, make the man.
Or your wife.
We don't need that.
Gets you angry, right? You might not, that's a trigger. That is something that physiologically, or a thought that happens, or a pattern that happens that either you're not aware of or you can't catch quick enough, right? So your job is to unearth some of that. So even though we asked her early on in them checkbox, what are your triggers? They might have to touch some things that are really authentically a trigger. It's in a conversation that you might have to go back and add some things. Am I talking too fast? Are y'all with me? Mm-hmm. So when you get to that, I have about 4 minutes left. When you get to that, what signs do I notice? That might be a conversation, even though they did a checkbox. So let's go back. Let's stop. When she took the door off your room, right? Let's go back to that moment. She took the door off your room. All right, close your eyes. Now, seriously, close your eyes real quick. I know, I ain't. Close your eyes. You come in and the door off your room. What was the first thing you thought?
Mad.
Right, what was your thought?
Why did you take the door off my?
And when that's what went through your mind?
Yeah.
Why she took the door from you? Say it like how you thought.
Why did you take the door off my room?
And what did you notice was going on in your body when you thought? Can you?
You know.
Let's do it. What did you do? So the door's off your room. Let's do it. You walked in, the door's off your room. What?
Why the door off my room?
There you go. So you know. So what? Do you usually do that? Like when you're mad, you usually. So that's a catch. That's a catch, right? When you feel that's a trigger. That's a catch, not a trigger, but that's a sign. Right. So we want to start to make sure that before you get to that moment, you kind of can address that sign. So that's when you start listening here. But on that former sheet, we said, what are your triggers? Well, you don't know that triggers. That some of this is going to happen in your conversation, even though you gave me a little checklist, right? And then the next question says, my family can help me buy. And what's a teenager going to say? Leave me alone. Get my door back. Get my door back. Right? So look, baby, but your door gone, right? Your door gone. And so you got to use a little humor. You got to be a person in this conversation. Right? Your door gone. Alright? So let's say, now that you calm, cool, and collected, right? And I know you're smart. You got feet. This is when you use your skills. I know you're smart. We're going to learn to manage this behavior. That door gone. And before you, why you take my goddamn? You already know before. That's my sign. We listen to signs, right? So before you do that, right? What can we do? What can mom do? Who can step in, if anybody, and say to you something? Well, my big sister. I want my motherfucker to took my day. My big sister can come. You understand? Then you start hearing who might need to take part in this plan around that behavior. Right. You got me? Right. And you start hearing the people that they trust, right? That make sense? Mm-hmm. Because remember, this is client-centered. Right? This ain't about what everybody else needs. Okay? So, then you want to get to rewards. All right, girl. So that door gone. You done caught. You done caught yourself, right? You done caught yourself at the cuss word. Where's my God? You done caught yourself at the cuss word. Boom, boom, boom. What you gonna do? With some self-reward. What's something that you can do for yourself? Because one, you want to empower them. Because mom and dad get mad, and they might decide not to honor here until they get to the plan, right? We still talk to the client right now. What you gonna do for yourself, girl? Because you done held that in your mouth, in your throat. What you going?
Ice cream.
What can you do for yourself? Ice cream. What you got?
Ice cream make everybody. I'm calm down.
No, but you done that. So what can you do for yourself? Because you're going to deserve something. Because that's hard work you're doing here. Mm-hmm. What can you do for yourself? What you like to do that you have control over?
Read a book.
Oh, you sophisticated. So do you have books? Yes. Do you have books you like to read?
Yes.
Right? But if she said no, right? Then you might have to start developing like some resource channels for her. That one right there can find some resources. But you might develop some resource channels. But see how this became client-centered and it's a conversation around people. So that's how you're going to go about developing a plan and to figure out who needs to come to that table around that child to develop the plan. Okay. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. All right. Any questions?
Now, see, I had a client when you get into rewarding yourself. I said, write a positive journal. I'm going to give you a minute. Write down what took place. So every time that client get upset, that client can go back and remind himself of what to do and how he did.
And I mean, this is a whole nother professional development, but I just want to add in, when you do bring people to the table, sometimes, and I'm picking on parents a little bit because parents are so emotionally involved, right? And sometimes, right now we've had this whole conversation, assuming that we're talking about teenagers, but your clients are very much adults too, right? So please translate the information. However, when we bring parents in, and even let's say spouses in, and we're dealing with an adult, there's a lot of emotional charge in the room. It is really your job at that point to show up for your client. Hey, listen, No. We're not here to finger point. We're not here to blame. We're not even here to keep recounting what happened. We're here to determine what is the goal, what is the plan moving forward. Oh, no. Do we need to kind of take a break? Let's step out the room and let's come back because we got to get to goal and problems. No, baby, don't get upset. We got this. We got this. Right? So you very much have to be in the position of mediator on behalf of the client. Very strong. Okay? All right, so let's go back to the pre-test, post-test that you started with, and you answered some questions. And let's go through it. Y'all with me? You got it? Okay. Can someone else read? Because I'm tired of hearing my own voice. Now, you're filling out the post part of the test. Let me let you do it first. Go through and fill out your post with what you know now. And then we'll correct because I want you to leave a form.
It's right behind. Yep. That ain't me.
And Temple actually needs this data and information, so please make sure you're filling out yours. You're just on T's and F's. You need someone right with? What you need?
I got her.
You got it? Okay. Would another minute do, or do you need more time? Talk to me.
I'm good.
Yeah, they
Okay. I'll do another minute because I still see his sound. All right. Can somebody go through?
All right, let's go.
All right.
Number 1, the client must be an active participant in the drafting and facilitation of the safety plan. True.
The client must. Let's talk.
Oh,
Talk. Must.
False.
Yes.
Why is it false?
Because you said that family can. Wait a minute. It's false.
So let me get. Remember,
I'm thinking it's true.
I
thought it's
Right, and I'm saying it's true too. And
I'm saying
it is.
I'm saying it's
and
true.
That's why it's there. It is false.
Okay.
Remember I said, you may have to develop a safety plan and the client may not be a willing participant because they're not ready to plan it. However, there needs to be some precautionary things that takes place at home because there's a risk or harm. So it may take the family members to come up with a plan. It's almost like an intervention, if you will, intervention is a strong word, but it may take the family or the loved ones to come up with a plan, or the teacher or the support staff to remove the impending harm. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So the client may not be involved if they're not ready.
Right.
All right. Next one.
The safety plan eliminates the problem behavior. False.
False. What are we trying to eliminate? Harm. Now eventually, as it evolves, and we may eliminate behavior, but realistically, we're reducing the harm and the crises. We de-escalate. Right? Next.
The safety plan is designed to reduce harm.
True. Yes. You have a good reading voice. Go ahead.
Thank you. The safety plan is developed by the coordinator. False.
Who's it developed by?
The family.
Whoever the team is, right? Participants, yes.
Number 5, right?
Mm-hmm.
The safety plan must include the family. That must. False.
That's right. It may not. It may just be the client. It might be the client and the teacher. It may be the client and the staff. Right?
And then 6, every client must begin services with a detailed safety plan. False.
What's the word?
Detail.
It may be simple. It may not be detailed if they're not ready for that sophisticated, that level of sophistication. We good? Put your name and date at the top. Pass that forward.